All right, so
Excellent.
welcome to the CJN Daily, and thanks for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
One of the things that is interesting to me is that you're the brother that didn't go to theater school, right? And you're the brother who wasn't supposed to be in arts. So
Yeah.
how did this flip around, and how is that going over in your family?
So, I mean, my family's been super supportive. I'm really, really blessed to have the parents that I do. They're so amazing. Obviously, my brother is amazing. It's funny, I didn't expect this just as they didn't expect it. COVID started. I worked for a furniture company, living my life, and my friend had said, "Oh, have you been on TikTok?" And I said, "Isn't that for little kids?" And he said, "No, like check it out. It's actually kind of cool, whatever." So I downloaded the app, and within a few days, I was completely enamored. I was addicted. I'm in. So I just started posting some videos, and it was definitely a slow evolution to the point where I'm at now with my content. But I just started posting some videos and just sort of seeing, and the reaction, I mean, not every video, but the reaction was quite good to the stuff I was putting out. And I think people found me entertaining. And so I just kept posting and people kept watching. And there are tons of people who post and, they don't really gain any sort of traction, and it is what it is. But really, I'm so fortunate in that I really just like found a group of people. And it's funny because those close to me are like, I'm so not surprised because you're just being Josh. And the Josh that I find so funny and the Josh that I love so much is like being appreciated by millions of people around the country and around the world. And like, while they all like laugh and are like, "Oh my God, you're so hysterical. Like, I can't believe I just discovered your page." My friends will say to me, like, "Oh, this is so something you would have just said. Like, it's so you," that it's really funny because it was never something that I intended to like really become a career for me. And life is weird, here we are.
Exactly. And you're along for the ride, which is amazing.
Mhm.
But I do want to ask about your production process. This is because I know how hard it is. A lot of influencers say
Sure.
that the pressure is so much they can't take it. James Charles, there's all these dramas and things. Um, so how often do you post? Like, do you have to post for a week at a certain time? Like, what does that do for you?
Um, in terms of keeping the engagement and the numbers up, obviously the more I post, the better that my page is doing. But that being said, I even right now haven't posted in about a week. And the reason that is because I have nothing to say right now. And I would rather not sacrifice the integrity and the quality of my content for the sake of just posting. And so, I mean, I actually complain to my family and my friends about this all the time that like I struggle. I'm struggling right now. I'm having a little bit of writer's block. And like, I think it's just important to note that like that's okay because I would rather post when I'm feeling good about what I'm posting than just posting something that might not resonate well. I think especially with the internet being so ruthless, people will be a little bit more forgiving of having to wait a little bit longer for a post than me posting things that just aren't important or good, just me posting for the sake of posting. So I definitely feel the pressure and I'm very critical of myself. I always have been. It's something I struggle with. So I think that like it's really idealistic for me to say, "Oh, it's no big deal. I just won't post until I have something or a good creative idea," because that's obviously not the case. I get very down on myself and the pressure is immense to be able to post. But I also have that logical side of my brain that talks to myself and says, "It's okay. You will come up with an idea." And so, especially with now this being like my full-time thing, I've actually quit my job. This is what I do. This is the money I make from it. So I will sit and I will just go through the internet looking for inspiration, and not in a way of like copying or plagiarizing ever, because everything that I post is 100% my own. But just even like when someone else makes you laugh, even if it's something completely unrelated to what you want to post, sometimes it just gets those juices flowing, it gets your brain going. And I'll spend my days, I mean, it's a job, right? So like I'll spend my days really just like looking for inspiration. I have memos and memos and memos you wouldn't even believe in my phone of just like little bits that I want to touch
Yes, I
on.
would. Yes, I
And
would. I have ADD. I have eight browsers open at all times, so I
100%.
do.
Yeah. So I will have little memos in my phone of just little bits that I want to touch on. And every once in a while, I'll go back and I'll revisit them and I'll workshop them until finally when I will feel good. And I'll have, if you looked in my TikTok, you would see like hundreds and hundreds of drafts of unposted, and like 10 or 20 could be the same joke, but just tweaking the words a little bit until I find that perfect delivery and that perfect timing. And once I feel really good about it, I can't explain it. I don't have like a word for it. It just like feels right. And I'm like, this is the one. And then I post.
I noticed that I've watched a lot of your content, and the Black Lives Matter post you made, and of course about, you know, LGBTQ and pride issues. I don't see a lot or anything about Jewishness. I could be wrong because I haven't seen everything, but
I definitely, especially with the conflict that was happening last month, I definitely found myself caught between a rock and a hard place because my page is supposed to be entertaining and apolitical and not, you know, supposed to be really this like heavy place. It was really just meant to be like a place of like just fun and entertainment and love. It's not meant to be this heavy. But that being said, when serious issues do come up, including ones that impact my own community, I do think it is my duty to speak up. I don't know if you know this. I actually did do a live stream with a few other Jewish creators, as well as a Jewish organization out of the US, actually, on both my Instagram and TikTok throughout the situation that was happening in May in Israel, and spoke on it. So I definitely don't want to give the impression ever that I pick and choose every other cause except my own, because that's definitely not the case. Um, Jewish advocacy has always been something that's close to my heart. I mean, I went to Jewish school growing up. I went to Jewish day camp. I grew up in the community. So it's never really been something that like I've not been exposed to. It's something that's very close to my heart. And I definitely expressed it in any way that I could. So I did 2 lives, one on my TikTok to thousands of people and one on my Instagram to another set of thousands of people, as well as actually I did a lot of commentary and responses to a lot of other videos that were, I found to be very anti-Semitic and hateful. So activism on all accounts is something that I'm very passionate about. So I definitely think that if you happen to be live and on my page the day that I was live, you would have seen it. It's okay.
I didn't see that, of course, but I promise that I will go and look. But the
Yeah.
thing about that, you mentioned that you were commenting on others. So let's talk about this deluge of hate against being Zionist, being Jewish, that has happened since May. It's settled down a little, but it's not gone for sure. As someone who's in that sphere, how do you balance not wanting haters to come onto your TikTok and just delude you with hate being Jewish versus standing up for the, you know, your truth, right? How do you do that?
So that's actually a really important topic. I think that I'm so privileged to have the platform that I have. I mean, between almost 500,000 on Instagram and almost 2 million on TikTok, it's quite a few people from lots of different walks of life and diverse countries around the world that have exposure to my platform. I think it'd be a waste to just completely avoid the topic. I mean, I think that obviously my channel started as something light and funny and just sort of meant to be relatable and bring us all together. However, when hate exists in any form, including the anti-Jewish form, I think it is our duty, especially as Jews who have traditionally been persecuted, to stand up to it. So I think it's super important to sort of just watch yourself and make sure that when you are commenting on it, you're coming from a place of education and just behaving with class. I think that the second that you almost like lean too far into this like hateful rhetoric and respond with hateful rhetoric from your perspective, it just looks like 2 school children fighting. I think that if you can talk from a place of education and speaking your truth, I think that you're setting yourself up for people, even if they don't agree with your viewpoint, to at least acknowledge that you're educated and that you do know what you're talking about. And so I think that you can't let the hate get to you. I mean, there's going to be trolls. I literally just the other day had to like go through my DMs and like just like read like quite a few, even still like just from May, that have to do because they'll see I commented on a post that was supporting the IDF or whatever it was. And they'll say like, how could you support these monsters, blah, blah, blah. And I think it's just important to be able to like choose what you're going to engage with. If something is just completely anti-Semitic and hateful, it's like, I don't even have the time of day to like entertain that. If something is a genuine conversation and you do have the facts and you are educated, and that is something that I do pride myself on, then I think that you can do it in a respectful way and just really showcase who you are and what you believe in and live your truth. Because at the end of the day, there's going to be haters. I'm also no stranger to getting hate. I mean, not to divert the topic away from being Jewish, but like I'm a gay person. So whether it's being a Jew and a Zionist, which I am, or just me existing in my truth of who I am as a person and walking down the street, the amount of times I've gotten called slurs from a car that are so baseless, it's the same hate in a different form. And I'm really fortunate enough that I've just grown a thick skin and I'm so accustomed to it that it doesn't phase me or scare me. I mean, if I'm going to lose followers for living my truth, then I probably didn't need those followers anyway. So I think that it's really important to just be able to like advocate yourself and just live your truth. But I do think that something that the Jewish community needs to do as a whole is really emphasize, especially because these problems aren't solved. It might have been a little bit more quieted down right now, but they're not solved. And I think that for the next time or the time after, I think that the Jewish community needs to do a really good job at educating all the time and not just doing this sort of like reactionary educating when something flares up, because the average person, Ellen, doesn't know what's going on. They don't need to. They're not exposed to it. They live their own life in their own bubble and their own truth. And so if random person John Smith doesn't know what's going on and then they just see all of these terrible things, of course, what are they going to think? And especially in this climate of 2021 and everyone liking to support the underdog and cancel culture and all of these sort of like almost baseless and toxic viewpoints that are just exploding through the internet and through the younger generation. I think that the Jewish community needs to do a better job at priming the public and even just sort of like talking to the public and engaging with people not in our bubble all of the time, so that when times like this do happen, they see us as human and not these inhumane monsters.
So about the family, you do a lot of stuff in your house, of course,
Of
and I've
course.
seen your dad in the kitchen pouring water on you. But I haven't seen your mom or your brother. Are they okay with being, and now Jack, of course, is part of it. Is that
Yeah.
all okay with all of them?
Yeah. I mean, they're so supportive. I think that if I ever asked them to be in a video, they would 100% do it. It hasn't come up yet, but it's definitely not something that's like I'm intentionally excluding them. I appreciate that you've watched that far back. Wow, that's impressive. But I mean, no, like they've been so great. I definitely would love to include my mother and brother in the future. And that's definitely something I'm going to know to maybe work on doing.
What about Sheila?
Oh,
Can you teach your
Sheila.
bubby how to do TikTok?
My grandmother, I am so impressed with her because she's not tech savvy. Like Sheila is, Sheila will think she's sending me a text message and she'll send my mom an email instead, or she'll like comment something on one of her friends' Facebook and see like, Josh, did you see that text I sent you? Like, no, you commented that on Rhoda's Facebook post. Like, no. But somehow she has figured out TikTok. I'm really not sure how. And every time I post a video, I will get a phone call from her congratulating me every single post. And she's so supportive and someone who definitely does not come from the generation of being tech savvy. I applaud her so much. And I'm so lucky to have a grandmother. She's the only grandmother I even have left alive. So especially because of that, that is so supportive. And even just on top of it, really touches me.
So I just want to check to make sure that I've got everything okay that I've asked you, and I really appreciate it. Oh, I got two more. Yeah. Three.
Sure.
What's your favorite part about being Jewish? And what's your least favorite part?
Okay, amazing. My favorite part about being Jewish, and this is something that I literally talk about with my boyfriend all the time, he's not Jewish, is our culture around family, I think is something that's so unique and so special. I think that no matter sort of what sect of Judaism that you come from and what really just sort of like background you come from, this one commonality, whether we're in Canada, whether we're in the US, whether we're in Israel, whether we're in Mexico, wherever, anytime you meet a Jewish family, I feel like there's this just sense of commonality in the way that we interact with our family and the way that I feel like family with people who could be complete strangers is something so unspoken and I think so important. And there is nothing like getting off the plane and walking into Tel Aviv airport and just like having this feeling of like, I'm home, even if I haven't been there in so many years, and just people in the streets stopping each other and just talking in the market or inviting people for Shabbat dinner that they barely know. It's so special. So I would say that that's my favorite part about being Jewish. And my least favorite part about being Jewish is probably that's like a tough one. I honestly don't know if there's anything that I completely don't like. Maybe like Some of the Jewishy food is not my favorite, but like other than that, I really love everything about being Jewish.
Jewishy, like Ashkenazi Jewishy,
Yeah,
Russian,
like
or like
Ashkenazi or
kishka? No one eats kishka. I hate kishka.
yeah, I don't like gefilte fish. It's not for me. I don't even really like kugel, if I'm being completely honest with you. So like, it's just that if I had to pick one thing that it was my least favorite, it would probably be the traditional Ashkenazi holiday food.
Well, that could be a whole thing too, because I know lots of people do not like kugel, and if
Yeah,
you try to serve it at Yontif, they're like, "No, I'll pass, thank you."
for sure. That's me.
Saying
That's
that
literally,
outside the house is like something, but
yeah,
the whole thing about you just said to me, your boyfriend is not Jewish. That's a thing. That is a thing. The least favorite thing about being
yeah.
Jewish is finding someone to love, first of all, and then the fact that they're not Jewish is a whole other thing.
I'm so fortunate in that he's so smart and so educated and so worldly that he already knew so many Jewish people and had such a love for the Jewish religion and culture and ethnicity. Because I think it's so much more than just a religion, but it's really not as much of a thing as I think it could have been if I had met someone who had completely no exposure. He knows Jewish people. He's very sort of like versed in sort of like our way of life, especially even just like through me. So I think that while it's like, and it could have been a lot more of a thing than it is. And I'm really lucky to have him.
Awesome. Has Dan Levy reached out to you? Dan Levy, I should say, reached out to you, or vice versa.
He has not, but I would love that very much. I'm a huge fan.
Good. Listen, it's been great to chat with you. Is there anything you want our listeners and readers to know from the CJN Daily?
I would urge them all to download TikTok, not just to watch me, although I would obviously love that very much. I think that the app itself is aging, and I think that it has a lot. When I say aging, I mean appealing to a broader audience. And I think that the people and the information that's on there, it will surprise a lot of the viewers from this podcast who are listening to this interview, who might normally not consider themselves to be part of the TikTok crowd. I really think that even from a Jewish aspect, there's a whole Jewish sub niche within TikTok that if you know where to look, and if you just start looking through some Jewish hashtags like hashtag Jewish, hashtag Zionist, things like that, they will find themselves learning and being exposed to so much different information and so many different cool people that I don't think it's something that they would regret.
It's been a pleasure chatting with you. Thanks so, so much.
No, and thank you for having me.